Hello, welcome to Stories in Time. My name is Ellouise Schoettler. I'm your storyteller. I love to go to the library. Do you go to the library? Oh, I love it, and we are so lucky. We have such good libraries here in Montgomery County, Maryland. I think I'll go to the library when I leave here today. Well, I'm going to tell you a story about books. I went to the library for the first time, the big library, when I was in the 3rd grade. It was upstairs of the O'Donoghue School. And Sister Mary Joan came downstairs one day and gathered up the 3rd grade. And we marched up the stairs to go to the library. She opened the door. Shh. You can't talk in here. Shh. And we walked in. There was a big table. And it was reserved for us, I guess. It was empty and reserved for us. And we sat down. And she stood at the head of this table looking at us. How many of you have been to the library? And none of us could put our hands up. So she said, all right, I want you to listen to me. And she picked up a book and held it up. And she said, this is your book. It has a front and a back, and the pages are inside. And you're going to have to turn the pages to get the story to read. All right, I understood that. And then she opened up and she took a page and showed it to us. And she said, when you finish reading that page, do not turn down the corner. That's dog earing. And it will hurt this book. It will hurt this book. I couldn't believe what she was saying. I didn't want to hurt that book. No, I didn't. So you won't dog ear. And the other thing is that you won't write in the book. Well, can't you write in a book? I thought. No, you can't write in a book. It will damage it. And then she said, this is the 2 things to remember. Do not dog ear. And do not write in a book. And it sounded like she was telling us about a sin, but I knew that I wouldn't do that. And I didn't. As long as I was in school, I didn't. And then I guess I didn't really think about it much after that. But I had learned that lesson. Now, I love to go to the library. I bring books in and borrow from the library, try to take them back on time so that I don't have fines to pay. And I'm careful with them. But as I grew older and the time went by, it's so easy to buy a book today. Or 20 years ago when I started buying books, I had a bag I could carry. And you can always find a cheaper book at a secondhand store or some other place where they're having a sale, so that it's not a first pay on the cost of a book. So I like to buy secondhand books that are inexpensive. And I do that. And I carry it in a cloth book bag and take it with me everywhere I go. And in that bag, I also take a pen with me. I take a pen because I like to remember some of the things that I see in those books. And I need a pen to underline. Well, I was reading Mirror, Mirror by Gregory Maguire, a fairy tale that he had altered. And I loved it. I got started with it. I was into about the 6th chapter, and I read it on the airplane when I was going to California to see my daughter and her children. And that was just a great thing for me. a good book, an airplane ride, seeing Robin's kids on the other end. And the next morning I got up and I went into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror. She has a long mirror over her long sinks. And I looked into the mirror and my mother was standing there in that mirror and she was saying, "Get your hair cut." I stepped back. "Get your hair cut, Ellouise." Well, it did look pretty bad. And so I went back and I got dressed and I got my book together with the pen. I had to have that. I didn't know how long I'd have to wait to get my hair cut. And so I knew the way and I took the car and I went down to the town of Lafayette to the same barbershop that my daughter took her sons. I liked those people. I'd been there before. Do you ever do that? I liked them. I'd been there before. Now, they hadn't gone all out for decoration in that shop. They had just a bench with some kind of a tough pillow across it. And so I went, sat down. What they did is you come in, you look for the pad, and you put your name in. And they would call your name when it was your turn. I looked, well, there was only 2 or 3 people on the bench already, and I could see that it was going to be, you know, one man, all he could possibly have was a little trim on the back. He didn't have much hair, so that wasn't going to take long. And then I thought, I'll be out of here pretty quick, but I can probably read a little bit. So I sat down and I took out my book. And I was reading. It was absorbing. I was enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, some words just jumped up at me off the page. They were so captivating about don't do an aberration. Aberrations are not good things for you to do. Aberrations, what is an aberration? And then I thought about the dictionary, and that aberrations is when you do something that's against the rules or against what you've been taught is a good thing. And I thought, I want to remember that word. I didn't know that word, aberrations. So I pulled the pen out of my bag and I marked it. And then to be sure that I could find it again, I made a big star next to the side of that paragraph. And I went back to reading. There was a white-haired lady sitting next to me, and I felt the movement on that pillow that we were sitting on. And then I felt her breathing as she leaned over to me. I saw what you did. What? I sat up and looked at her, and then I thought, what is she talking about? I saw what you did. You wrote in your book. You did it. I saw you do it. She looked very angry. And I said, it's all right. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It is my book. I don't care about that. You wrote in your book. And I took the book and I opened it up and showed her the back of it. There wasn't a little envelope there to put your name in. And I said, look, sister, this is not my book from the library. This is my book from my house. She didn't look forgiving or understanding. She just looked angry. And then I realized she looked like a very angry librarian. And then the voice from the back of the room said, Ellouise Schoettler, Ellouise Schoettler. And I stood up, I picked up my bag, I dropped in my pen, and I walked over to get my hair done. As I walked across the room, I turned around, and she was still looking at me. She was following me with her eyes. She was still looking at me. And then I said to myself, I know what's going to happen. I do. I know what's going to happen. She's going to tell somebody that I wrote in my book. Thank you for coming. Maybe you have a story like that. Thank you.